So I remember when I first got into business and I heard this phrase called EEI, energy, enthusiasm, and intensity. And it struck me a little bit odd because I had never heard anybody in a professional setting talk to me about energy, enthusiasm, or intensity. I wanted to talk today about the importance of energy specifically because I undervalued the importance of energy in being successful, and I realized how important energy really is. And so I grew up first, I was introverted. I was more shy. I was somebody who wouldn't consider myself an energetic person. I thought that I had endurance, but not energy. I thought of myself as a professional, but not some like promoter or marketer or somebody that would ever film videos like this. Not at all. But I later found out how much energy was transferable, how much energy was a thing. Obviously, Albert Einstein, the famous Albert Einstein, is most notably known for creating a formula for E equals mc squared, and that has to do with energy. But I always thought energy had to do with science. I didn't think it had to do with success. I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and they talks a lot about an energy. And then you hear in science classes that energy is neither created nor destroyed, it simply transfers. But I always thought of that as something that was far outside of me, something that didn't relate to me specifically. Definitely not being successful or being a great leader. And I remember going to a conference and I remember seeing somebody that had a high level of energy. And I always thought that people with a high level of energy were meant to motivate people, or maybe they were there to sell something or to promote something. So I kind of dismissed the importance of having it as if I didn't need to have that, or that's what maybe salespeople do or something. And I later realized how wrong I was. When you think about pastors, there's a difference between pastoring a church that's existing in size and just giving the same message to the same group of people versus a pastor who's growing a church. There's a difference between a teacher who's giving a lecture about something that they regularly talk about versus a teacher that's inspiring the future teachers. There's a difference between a business leader who is trying to motivate and train people versus just teach people. And so as I share this with you, I realized I had a lack of energy. And I remember somebody pulling me aside and saying, "Hey, you need to check your energy. You need to get it up." Now, I remember times where I was tired or lethargic or sleepy, and those things definitely affect your energy. And I'm going to give you some tips here on how to have more energy. But before giving those tips, it's really important to understand why you would even take those tips. See, if I come out here and I just say, have more energy, you'll be more successful, that may or may not resonate with you. But if I tell you why you're going to have energy, it means all the difference in the world. And so I began to work on this in my 20s. I never worked on this before then. And I remember my younger brother saying to me one time when he said, "Hey, you smile more." I'll never forget, after a couple years, he said, "Hey, there's something different about you. You smile more." And I remember being taken back, and I processed for a moment and I thought, smile more? Would I smile? And he says, "No, not really. I mean, you're a hard worker and you get things done, but too often we associate working hard with being a leader or being professional as being somebody that inspires somebody. And we have a lot of professionals in America, but we don't have a lot of energy leaders. And I used to look at people with energy like those people were crazy, but I started working on my energy a little bit more. And there's some tips on how to do it. You know, the Bible tells us that our body is a temple and that we need to treat our body like the temple that it is. And I never took that part seriously too. And I realized how much we eat improperly, or how we sleep the wrong way, or how we let, screen time into our eyes late at night. And we really shouldn't be doing those things. And I didn't realize how much it affected our energy. And we're obviously in the technology day and age, or else you wouldn't be able to watch this today. So technology is awesome. However, there are many more things that we have to do in order to have energy throughout the day. And I want to give you some tips on that. First, I want you to take a look at your overall diet. If you look at the way that we're eating, okay, there's certain things. I asked myself a question and I said, when was I operating the best in my life? When I was in my life at different stages and I felt the most excited and the most energetic and I felt more excited about where I was going, what was I doing at that time? And I remember taking out white sugar from my diet, white flour from my diet, heck, even a lot of dairy products from my diet. And we think about white sugar. Yes, you could go have some fruit. And if you're a bodybuilder will say, well, sugar still turns to or fruit still turns to sugar. And that's true. And it does. But white sugar specifically, you'll find in nature, you're not going to find a lot of naturally white things. Okay, there's no sour cream or mayonnaise naturally in nature, and there's cauliflower or something, but most of the time when we have sugars, we're talking about processed sugars, glazed, adding sugar to just about everything. When you go into a grocery store, most of what's in the middle aisles is processed foods or sugar added or preservatives or artificial this. And I love the fact that our current administration is talking more and more and more about the way we eat, specifically RFK, Robert Kennedy, and we're talking about this. In fact, you take a look at administrations in general. We just came off of 4 years of a president who's considered older, 78, 79 years old, Joe Biden, who has a lack of energy. I'm not here to talk smack about Joe Biden, but he has a lack of energy. Then you look at Donald Trump and what he's doing, whether you like him or not, you can't argue with the fact that this guy's running circles around everybody. You take a look at the NBA and how LeBron James at 40 years old seems to have a better conditioning or be in better shape than seems like 90% of the other players who are world-class athletes in their 20s, but just the way he takes care of his body. So if we take a look at what we put into our mouth, because our body's our temple, and that temple is going to deliver energy, and that energy is going to transfer into our success. That success is going to determine our income, our savings, many times the quality of our relationships, our marriage, the way we are with our children, the way we feel about ourselves has a lot to do with how energetic we are. And so if we could control the controllables, we could really change things. So when you take a look at the way we're eating, I recommend taking out white sugar first. If you could get white flour out of there too, man, that's a big deal. When you take a look at all the different tortillas or breads or all the different ways that we eat, watch what happens, not just the fact that you lose weight, but your overall level of energy goes sky high. When you look at maybe a cleanse, maybe you need to do an intestinal cleanse or something like that because our intestinal tract is, 6 to 8 times longer than our body. And what ends up being in there many times parasites or bad foods or fecal matter. I know this isn't exciting to talk about, but sometimes we have to clean that stuff out and not just work out to get muscles, but work out to be clean from the inside out. Wasn't always something that I did. Not only what you eat, which what we just talked about, but when you eat also. If you eat if you stop eating after 6 or 7 p.m., we call this intermittent fasting. I used to think that that was impossible. I used to think there's no way I could not eat after 6 o'clock. I'll die. I thought I would die. And I'm obviously being facetious when I say that, but it's true. When you wake up, when you feel a hungry feeling in your stomach, that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean you need to eat. That actually means that your stomach is processing and doing its job. And the digestive tract and your digestive system can't be in drive and reverse at the same time. So when you put food into it, it goes into reverse. When you're not having food, it'll continue to drive. I'm using a metaphor, and for those of you that know more about the health system, I apologize if I get a little bit of this incorrect, but generally speaking, this is the way our body works, and it'll change the way we do things. If we allow sunlight into our eyes earlier in the morning versus just looking at our phones, or if we do our best to not watch TV late at night, and we make sure that we get not only rest, but quality rest, which is very important. It'll change our level of energy tremendously. When we look at the ways that we're active throughout the day, think of it. Most of us are able to sit on Zooms or sit on computers, and this causes us to be lethargic. It causes us to be on our feet less. If you already have a job that keeps you on your feet a lot, maybe you're in law enforcement or nursing, then that's obviously a different situation. But for those of us that may sit in an office or we're sedentary a lot, we don't move around a lot, here's some suggestions. Obviously, we want to work out 3-4 days a week, but especially for us guys, for the gentlemen that are out there, we don't have to be out, we don't have to have a ton of muscle, but we could be leaner. And I recommend walking 20 minutes, 30 minutes in the morning. I had a gentleman recommend that to me also when I was in my late 20s, and he said you should walk for 20 minutes. And I really didn't think that guys walked. I didn't think that was for guys. I thought that that was for ladies or older people or something. And he said, no, if you walk for 20 minutes on an empty stomach, it'll really kickstart everything in the morning. Just watch what it does to your overall health and your overall energy. And so I noticed that just taking a walk around my building or taking a walk in the morning, how much it changed my life. Also stretching. making sure that you're flexible. This isn't just for 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds. This is for anybody at any age that's watching this right now. The more flexible you are, the more your blood can flow, and the more the blood can flow, the more energy that you have. I also recommend chiropractic work. If whether you've been to a chiropractor before or whether you believe in that or not, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth community, and I think that the best chiropractor out there is Dr. David Bynum and his entire crew. Dr. Bynum is amazing. But for 15 years, 17 years, I forgot how long, I actually wore an orthotic in my shoe, and I had a lift just slightly on one side because I had a car accident when I was in around 18, 19 years old, and I was recommended just to offset just a leg that was a little bit longer than another. Instead of fixing it, I just kind of wore something in my shoe that gave me balance. And I used to think that I needed that. And I realized that I didn't need that. I just needed a little bit of chiropractor work. And within 3 to 6 months, Dr. Bynum had me going like this, and it wasn't expensive. It wasn't surgery. It wasn't something I needed to be fearful of. But my energy at 40 years old felt like my energy was better than at 20 years old. And that should not be the case. And we're the most developed country on earth here in the United States of America, but we typically eat poorly. We don't have jobs that keep us active. We don't sleep appropriately. And so all these things affect our energy. And so as we kind of bring this all together and go back to the reason why we'd want to have energy to begin with, listen, I've got young children. And if you have young children, your kids are going to see you either as somebody who is just at home or somebody who is there with them. And let's face it, children have energy. They want to run around. I see way too many parents just give an iPad or a phone to their kid just to be entertained for a while. And I was like, my wife and I are like, no. So when I get home, do I have to run around the house? Yes. Do I always feel like running around the house? No. There's times where I'm praying that my little girls are sleeping, and they're not. And they're like, Daddy, and they want to move around. Now, I'm the boss. I'm the head of household. I could tell them, get out of my face, go to sleep, go sit here on an iPad. But what a piss poor parent I would be. What a poor parent I would be if I just told my kid to go watch something or go run around by themselves. They want daddy to run with them. And that's what good parents need to do. And we need to be better parents. My wife, she deserves the best husband she could possibly have. I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not a perfect spouse. Nobody's a perfect spouse. But if we give energy to our marriage is going to be so much more fruitful. And not just when we want to be physical or intimate, but throughout the day. It takes energy to pay attention to other people. It takes energy to be there with others. I see so many of the entrepreneurs that I train, and I ask them, what do you want? And they say, I want a lot of money, or I want a big team, I want a big business. And I ask them, do you know how much energy you need to tend to the needs of others? Or do you just want people on your team, but you're not willing to give the energy towards that team that they deserve? See, when you recruit somebody, or when you have somebody under your watch, or you're a leader of somebody, you can't run a business without having people that are working with you. You can't run a church, you can't run a household, you can't run a team, you can't run a country, you can't run anything without people. But people are not robots. They need their leader to be engaged with them. And in order to be engaged with them, you have to be able to respond to text messages, be on the phone with them. And you know what? They need you at times when you don't feel like it. And that's the biggest thing that I learned in building a team and building a business, is that it wasn't about me. It was about the people that I was leading. And we have a platform called Leader for Life. And that's leading not only in your households and your businesses, but leading in your country and leading in all different areas. And you can't have a leader without having energy. John Maxwell defines leadership as influence. It's tough to influence somebody else if you don't have the energy to influence them, because the most excited person usually gets the attention. The person that's talking the most, walking the most, and doing the most. Remember, you don't have to have this. You don't have to be this isn't my personality, Jason, or that's just not the way that I am. I used to say that too. Energy is not a personality. Energy is not something that you're born with. Yes, there are more kids that have more energy than other kids, but as an adult, energy is intentional. Energy is a decision. We make the decision to have energy. It's not about personality. Don't dismiss your greatness. Don't dismiss how great God made you by saying that's just not the way I am. That's an affirmation that your subconscious mind starts believing. If you say repeatedly over and over and over again, I'm just not good at that. That's not the way that I was made. That's not my personality. Well, guess what? You're right. But if you start changing your affirmations and you start saying, listen, I may not be an energetic person today, but I can choose to have energy. I can choose to do certain steps and change my life. I could change my body. I could change my attitude. I could change whether I smile. That is a decision. And I believe that anybody can be a leader. I believe that anybody can be considered energetic because I could tell you for me personally, I was not a leader and I was not energetic. I was just a hard worker and I tried to be a good person, but I was far from where I wanted to be and I still have a long way to go. And as we're on this journey together to becoming a better leader, let's all improve our energy. Our country will be a better place, our homes will be a better place, our workplaces will be a better place, and we tend to treat people better when we have a higher level of energy and we like ourselves more. So let's pick up our energy and let's go make it happen.